Welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone had the opportunity to have some coffee, walk around a little bit. We don't want to be sitting down too long. Welcome back to the water stream. Our next presentation here today is introducing the new building water system operator certification. So we had a little bit of information about this yesterday, and we're going to go into some detail about it today. So we have three presenters today for this session. We have Daniel Roberge. Daniel is the director of Water and Sewers Design, Construction, and Operations for the City of Vancouver. Our next presenter is Emily Peterson. Emily is the environmental health scientist at Vancouver Coastal Health, where she provides evidence, review, analysis, and advice on environmental impacts to human health. She works on a wide range of topics, including indoor, outdoor air quality, climate change, and healthy built environments. Previously, Emily has worked in environmental health at the BC Centre for Disease Control, the National Collaborating Centre for Environmental Health, and Public Health Ontario. And our last presenter is Sir Phil White. He is the manager of plumbing and mechanical inspections at and gas safety, development, buildings, and licensing department at the City of Vancouver. I was just recently informed that last year he was knighted, so that's great news. With that, I will let them take it away. I hope you enjoy the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. Presenters, I will start give a brief presentation or opening, and then pass it on to Phil, who will talk about our new system that we're actually launching today. So the City of Vancouver is a member municipality of Greater Vancouver, and the way we get our water is we have something called Metro Vancouver that will collect the water in our alpine lakes. They do a great job using all their operators that have EOCP certification. They collect the water, they clean the water, and they bring it to every municipality. Once this water gets to the municipalities, the cities are in charge of putting a distribution system so we can bring water to every property in our municipality. So again, we have a lot of EOCP certified operations workers in Vancouver, where we do a great job with an extensive networks of pipes to bring good, clean, high-quality water to our residents. But what happens is once this water crosses into private property, over private property line, we're not always sure what happens to this water. Most connections are with residents, and people just use it for drinking and cleaning and what have you. But there's some other application for water where people will add stuff to the water. And that's how we came about with this system, wanting to know, having a bit of control on what happens with this water and how can we make sure we protect our residents. Right now Phil White is going to join us on here, and he's going to talk about how we had to develop this plan to make sure that we took care of some historical issues that we had. And we're proud also for building and licensing to be able to launch this new program, and we'll be able to answer some questions after. Thank you. Phil?
Thank you, Daniel. So I'm going to walk us through how did we end up with a certification program for building water systems. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background here on that. So this is my house. When I'm playing tennis or I'm in my swimming pool, I have this right next to me. So this is what's called a combined sewer overflow. So Sometimes when it rains, the infrastructure is it's already maxed out in some areas, and we get this discharge going into the local waterways. So as you can see, this is what a combined sewer overflow looks like. This chart shows us that 41.3 billion liters of combined sewer overflows entered our local waterways in 2018. This is across Metro Vancouver. So this is a big problem regionally. Like our sewer infrastructure, we've had a lot of development, high-rises are going up, densification, and we need a place for all that water to go, and sometimes the infrastructure is just too small. So part of this certification was, how do we keep all that stormwater, all that rainwater, the groundwater, how do we keep it out of the sewers? So that was a bit of a background there. This chart shows us that not only when it rains, but sometimes without rain, this one there was 24 sanitary sewer overflows back in 2018. So it wasn't even raining, and we were overflowing into our local waterways. So we really need to figure out a way, what can we do so we can keep all this stormwater, rainwater out of the ground, out of the infrastructure, sorry. This one shows us that, so we had 53 events when it was raining. So that's quite a lot of events when you spread it across the year. That's like 1 in 5 during a rainfall event. We had 53 times that system emptied into the rivers, into the inlets. So we really had to find a way to keep that water out of the system. And this one just highlights the greater Vancouver area, and you can see, I believe that's Clark Drive that's highlighted, and that's a dry weather sanitary sewer overflow in 2017, and that's 68 million liters of pure black water going into our local waterways. So we looked at that and we thought, okay, we need to figure out a way to keep this water out of the sewer pipe. Like, we just want black water in that sewer. So let's start looking at areas to use the rainwater, areas to use the stormwater and that groundwater. What can we use it for? What non-potable needs can we use it for? So we started looking at cooling towers, because a cooling tower can use up to 50% of a building's potable water during the summer months. So it's a big, big demand. We looked at rainwater harvesting. That was another big one. And decorative water features. All of these don't need the drinking water that's supplied from Greater Vancouver through Daniel's team up to the property line. You don't have to have drinking water to put in your toilets, say. Now, once we started looking into that more, we realized that there was a bit of a public health risk that came with using non-potable water. And one of those public health risks is Legionella. So Legionella, there was actually an outbreak, or there is an ongoing outbreak right now in New Westminster. But it originated in Philadelphia, and it was traced back to a cooling tower. Philadelphia was, when we first heard about it, there was 221 people who contracted Legionella, and 34 of those people died. Quebec, the province of Quebec, they had a really large outbreak. They had 181 cases with 14 fatalities back in 2012. The City of Toronto had 135 cases with 23 people dying out of that. So the trouble with Legionella is nobody knows where the cooling tower is, the decorative water feature, the rainwater harvesting system. So the one from Ontario was that the City of Toronto, they failed to implement reasonable maintenance and monitoring. So when they had the outbreak, same as the City of New York, they were sending people door to door, climbing up to the roof to see where the cooling towers were, to see where the decorative water features were, to see where the rainwater harvesting. And in the middle of an outbreak, that is precious, precious time. We need to know where that equipment is straight away so we can give that information to the public health authorities. Closer to home, Surrey, a couple of years ago, they had a Legionella outbreak, and that was 14 cases. 7 went to ICU, and 2 people died from that. And unfortunately, if you Google Legionella Surrey, Walmart comes up. Walmart, they were proactive. They shut down their cooling systems. They scrubbed, they cleaned, and the actual culprit was a cooling tower that belonged to the Civic Library. So it's just unfortunate the way it gets reported like today. So if you Google Surrey Legionella outbreak, it's going to go back to Walmart. It wasn't Walmart that happened. Legionella cases, They're still trying to figure out why, but since 2000, there's been a 9-fold increase in Legionella cases across the United States. And if you think about it, 1 in 10 is fatal, and they say that there's an estimate of 52 to 70,000 each year. I mean, that's a lot of fatalities that would be coming out of this. So how do you get Legionella? Well, Legionella, it grows in like biofilm, and also water temperature fluctuations. It can be found in large buildings, hospitals, cruise ships. Like complex mechanical systems, cooling towers, showers, hot tubs, fountains. That water has to get aerosolized. And once it gets aerosolized, that's when you breathe it in, and that's how you can contract Legionella. So you took a glass of water and drank it, which had Legionella in it, not a problem. But if it went down the wrong hole, got into your lungs, that's where you're going to run into trouble. So as we were developing this operating permit program, we went to cities that had operating permits for cooling towers already. This one's New York City, and we wanted to learn from New York what didn't work for New York. So New York had to create an operating permit program when they had 150 people were sick with Legionella, 30-odd people were dying, and they decided, okay, we need a program right now. So they hit the ground running. They hired 60 health inspectors, and they came up with a operating permit program, plus also a very heavy maintenance program and a reporting program. So we went to New York to learn what didn't work from them. So that was the good part of ours, is that we were learning from their experience. So we set up the operating permit program. Really straightforward. You go online, you register your tower, and then we will send an inspector out just to make sure that what you've registered just conforms with that permit. So we went out and we started finding things like this. So this is a cooling tower, and it has vegetation growing out of it, and it was running. So this is like a prime candidate for Legionella growth. For those that don't understand how a cooling tower works, but basically it brings water back from the building that's collected heat and drops it over some media, and then that media has a big fan that draws the air out of it, draws that heat out of it. It's the same principle as like when you get out of a swimming pool on a hot day and you feel that coolness. It's just that evaporation. It's the same thing for a building. So we find this kind of stuff, and it's a little bit alarming for us. This one's a decorative water feature that is on a busy thoroughfare through the city. And, I've seen many people sitting here eating their lunches. Nobody would really think about it, but if you look at the color of that water, that's got a lot of nutrients in there. It's probably getting warm because it's the summertime, and it could be a good breeding ground for plumbing pathogens such as Legionella. One of our inspectors found this. So this is a store that had a rainwater harvesting system, and the rainwater harvesting system wasn't doing what everybody wanted to do. So they called a plumber. The plumber couldn't figure it out, so he's like, oh, well, let's just tie the drinking water into the non-drinking pipe. We'll do it that way. So as you can see, there's a direct connection, no backflow prevention whatsoever. So this got shut down immediately, but this is what we were dealing with when we were out there. So we really needed to have some kind of, we really need to have some kind of certification for people working on these systems. And this is where we turn to Vancouver Coastal Health, and we turn to EOCP. This one is at a seniors complex, and it was basically the building manager, everybody was complaining that it was hot in the seniors complex. So he got some hose, laid it across the roof, put a couple of holes in the end, and decided, well, I'm going to spray that water into the incoming air. We're going to cool down the building. But once again, you got that hose stretched 100 feet on top of a roof on a hot day. You get those high temperature fluctuations. It's a perfect breeding ground for Legionella. So this is the kind of stuff we were finding out there. But also some of it is really, really good. So I want to show this example. So this is an RO at a grocery store. So when that fine mist that gets sprayed on the vegetables, on the fruits, this is a proper setup, and is the contractor that maintains this has a lot of education and background behind it, so we didn't really have to worry about this so much. But then we have This unit was a store that's just recently opened up. The mechanical contractor installed the system, got it up and running, but there's nobody to look after it. So we don't know if it was going to be a store clerk, if it was going to be the janitor, if it was going to be the store manager, who was going to maintain the system. And, you know, it's a complex system. You've got filters, you've got chlorine pucks that have to go in there. So the system needs to be maintained by somebody with some education behind it. So that's kind of how we led up to the EOCP certification, the Building Water Systems. So the Building Water System operator is to get an operating permit. So you need an operating permit for a cooling tower. You need an operating permit for a decorative water feature, for a building water treatment system, and a rainwater harvest system. So as of January the 1st, 2022, to get that operating permit, you're going to have the EOCP certification. And this one shows, this is going back to July the 11th, 2020, so there's double the amount of permits now. But this just kind of gives you a good background on where the systems are. And this is all going to be public facing, so the public will be able to go onto the webpage, zoom into the building they live or they work at, and see, hey, it has a cooling tower, has a rainwater harvest system. When was the last time it was inspected? Did it pass that inspection? So this is all going to be public facing. And it's nothing new, like operating permits, they already exist. Elevating devices across the province, or across the country, they have to be registered. They have to have minimum maintenance. No one's going to step into an elevator if it's full of brushes and it's full of, like, you got rust and the numbers aren't working, the doors are banging away. Like, there's already an expectation that that elevating device, if it's not maintained properly, could do a lot of damage. So why don't we extend that beyond that, and we go to cooling towers, we go to rainwater harvest systems, we go to decorative water features. These are systems that, if they aren't maintained properly, they could become a public health risk. So we got a lot of support through this. We got a support from Tourism Vancouver, because Tourism Vancouver, greenest city in the world, they want people to come here, have their conventions. They don't want any type of Legionella outbreak. So they were one of the first groups to jump on board. Same as BOMA. So BOMA Buildings, so the Building Owners Managers Association, they really rallied behind this, because if you've got a building and you're doing everything you can to make sure that building is safe for the public, and you're building A, and then building B right next to it is very little maintenance, that cooling tower on building B can actually transpose onto the building A's cooling tower. Like, you can get those wind eddies will carry that evaporation up and dump it into the cooling tower of the good building. All right, so for BOMA to get on board, that we're trying to bring everybody up to the same playing field. So everybody has to have a minimum type of maintenance. Like, it's not rocket science. This one's a little bit of a pat on the back here at the NSF conference, excuse me, in Los Angeles. We got a mention from Dr. Bricey, who's with the United States Center for Disease Control, and he pointed out that promising development was in Vancouver with a cooling tower and decorative water features. The USDN network also said that we were a true leader in North America with this. So as far as I know, nobody has done this type of certification for building water systems past the property line. So Legionella pneumophila, this is the one kind of gets the most attention. So when Quebec had their big outbreak, the province of Quebec said, okay, listen, everybody register your cooling tower. So everybody registered the cooling tower, and then they started doing testing. Because you can register and you can have the best maintenance program, but if you don't do the testing, then you don't know if that maintenance program's working. So when the province of Quebec started their program, 21% of cooling towers tested positive for Legionella. So, 1 in 5 cooling towers tested positive for Legionella, which is a huge, like, nobody's expecting that many to come back. But just through the testing and changing their biocides or whatever they're using to maintain that system, they've driven that number down. And you see there in Q2 of 2017, it's hovering around the 8% mark. So that's a drastic change. And that's come just because they did the testing to figure out if their maintenance was working. Okay, so another thing I should really mention here is that these requirements are for the City of Vancouver. They're not for any other municipality across the province. We have heard from other municipalities that are really interested in this, and we have spoke to provincial health about this. We would love to see it be picked up across the province, but right now it's just a City of Vancouver initiative. So requirements for January the 1st, 2021 is on the cooling towers, you're going to have to submit a monthly Legionella pneumophila reporting. So that's monthly. And for decorative water features and non-potable systems such as rainwater harvesting, every 2 months. Rainwater harvesting, we already require water quality every 3 months now for E. coli, temperature, and turbidity. So on top of that, as of January the 1st, 2021, it's going to be Legionella as well. So, cooling towers will start monthly January the 1st. If your cooling tower comes back and you have a very high load of Legionella, then there's going to be prescribed corrective actions it's already printed into the bylaw. And those corrective actions, we harmonize those with the federal standard, MD 15161. And we did that because we didn't want a patchwork of regulation across the country. The federal government had already done an amazing program. So basically, we didn't reinvent the wheel. We just said, okay, what do you do if your Legionella results are coming back at X? What's the corrective action that needs to take place? So we just harmonized with them. We're also asking for an on-site maintenance log, which every tower or rainwater, everybody should have an on-site maintenance log. They should already be doing that. And also, we're asking for a 1-year maintenance contract for cooling towers. And the reason we did that was a lot of buildings that get put up, cooling tower gets put on, and then the strata's not formed. So the strata gets a couple of months to get formed. And then the strata has to decide. It's hard enough for strata to decide who's going to clear the snow from the sidewalk during the wintertime, let alone who's going to look after that cooling tower. Like a lot of stratas, they aren't even sure what a cooling tower is, even if they have one. So we said, if you're going to put in a new cooling tower, it has to come with a 1-year maintenance contract. So that's coming in place as of January the 1st, 2021. And what that will do is let that strata get formed, and then they can decide, they can look to see, hey, who's got the EOCP certification? Who do we want to look after our cooling tower? So the Building Water System Operator Certification now, this is the official launch is today. Like we've worked really and been so grateful to EOCP because we realized this was like a big miss this was a black hole because like Daniel said, we bring that water to the property line and then we got no idea what happens to it. So Vancouver Coastal Health and EOCP, they were the big drivers behind this. The City of Vancouver, we helped out here and there, but really want to pay tribute to Vancouver Coastal Health and EOCP for getting this off the ground. So that Building Water System Operator Certification, so it's going to be, I believe it's a 2-day course, and then there's the exam at the end. And it's going to, water quality, sampling, treatment, and with some ongoing continuing education. And it's kind of going to be driven around, like, what do you need to know to look after these systems? You don't need to know how to change a cooling tower. You don't need to know how to change variable speed pumps. It's not getting into that. It's getting more into the actual water itself. So when you get first of all, how do you take a sample, like the chain of custody? When you get that sample back, what does it even mean? Like, what does X Legionella mean? Like, is it safe? So that's what that course is going to cover. And then in conclusion, I just wanted to have this slide up here. This has been, 2 years in the making, and this has been a lot of collaboration between everyone. So we just wanted to acknowledge everybody who's involved here. And a big thank you to EOCP for actually taking this on, doing the certification, doing the exam at the end. So we can pass it over to questions. Any questions?
Thank you for that presentation. That was great. And like you said, we, as the EOCP, are very excited to be part of this and to help the City of Vancouver out. We're looking forward to this certification coming down the line. Right now in our feed, it doesn't look like we have any questions, but I suppose I have one question.
Sure.
Are there, with your timelines that you have, so you have January 2021, Are you anticipating some problems because that date is approaching fairly soon?
Yeah, we've done a lot of outreach. We've done lunch and learns with BOMA. We've done lunch and learns with a lot of engineering companies. We've done a lot of training with some of the building operators. So hopefully not, but it's a bit of an education campaign right now. We have 3 inspectors on the ground talking to the people that are looking after this equipment right now and just trying to explain and trying to just, it's like I say, it's educational. We're just reaching out to everybody. It's not going to be a hard, hey, you haven't submitted your Legionella report, you're going to get fined. It's going to be like, hey, why didn't you submit it? It needs to be submitted. What do we need to do to get you to submit this? So we give everybody a bit of a grace period there. Yeah.
Thank you. That seems like a reasonable approach. Looks like we have some questions filtering in now. A question here says, what labs are going to be doing the testing?
So we reached out to all the labs with BC CDC, and we let them know that it was that we would be asking for this. A couple of the local labs have started to get prepared for that. A list of labs is actually on the City of Vancouver's website, though. If you go to the City of Vancouver operating permit website, you should be able to find a list of labs that are accredited for this.
And what would be the anticipated costs per test on this?
Yeah, it's a good question. We're not 100% sure. We know from the experience in Quebec that I think it was close to $200 for that initial testing. But because everybody has to do it, I think that number's been driven down to about $80 now, is what I understand from the province of Quebec.
Okay, another question here. Would this be a good idea to roll out across the province? Do you see any benefits?
Well, we see tremendous benefit to roll out across the province, and that's something that we're hoping really happens. We saw, our city council saw this as a need to protect public health, so I'm sure that the other municipalities and provinces will be looking tightly at it.
Thank you. The rainwater collection system, is the certification only for large buildings, or what's the criteria?
So the criteria right now in the bylaw is you need an operating permit for anything that's more than 4 dwelling units. So if you have a triplex and a laneway, you're collecting rainwater, there's no operating permit requirements. Anything bigger than that, then yes, you do.
I think we have a couple more questions here.
Sure.
Does this apply to forestry log sorts for rainwater harvesting?
Does it apply to forestry log sorts? Yeah, I don't think we have too many forestry log sorts in the city, so probably not what I know of. I know there's one cooling tower that's taking river water that uses the water from the Fraser, but that's the only one I know of which has kind of something unique.
Will there be handheld test meters?
So the way working with BC CDC right now is going to be a culture test for the Legionella. That's something that CDC really wanted. It's going to be a culture lab, so no, there won't be handheld testing.
Okay, and I think we have a couple more here. Does the city also have cross-connection bylaws? And if so, how does this new certification mesh with that? Are there any overlaps? Are they completely complementary?
They're completely complementary. We have a really robust backflow prevention team, and what our inspectors would do if we notice that there's a system that doesn't have a backflow preventer, we will communicate with those guys, and we make sure that that system has the full backflow prevention on it.
Okay, and last question here is, where can someone find out more information on this program?
Yeah, so I believe on the EOCP website is about the operator certification, and also on Vancouver.ca operating permit. that tells you everything you need to know about the operating permit program and the requirements.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for fielding those questions, and thank you everyone for coming in to present that. Like I mentioned earlier, the EOCP is very excited to be part of this program, and are looking forward to seeing it move forward. On behalf of the EOCP, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out today and joining us.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, everyone,